When we look at a modern fighter jet, we see this incredible piece of machinery, right? A marvel of aerodynamics. But that's not the whole story anymore. Today's fighter jet is really a flying supercomputer. Its true power, its lethality, isn't just in the engines, it's in the millions of lines of code running its brain. That code is everything. But here's the catch, the dirty little secret of the global arms trade. When a country buys a state-of-the-art jet, they get the body, but they don't actually get the brain. That brain is sealed tight in what's called a black box. You can fly the plane, but you can't change it, you can't upgrade it, you can't truly own it. It's like you're on a permanent digital leash to the country that sold it to you. And this is where it gets really frustrating for a buyer. Imagine you've spent billions on this amazing piece of tech, and you want to arm it with your own homegrown missile. Well, you can't. You have to go back, hat in hand, to the original manufacturer and ask for permission. And that permission, it costs hundreds of millions of dollars and can take years. In the world of modern warfare, that's an eternity. Until now, something is happening that could completely rewrite the rules. India is closing in on a massive, almost unbelievable $35 billion deal for 114 French Rafale fighters. But you know what? The price tag isn't the real story here. The real headline, the thing that has defense analysts from Washington to Beijing absolutely buzzing, is that India is apparently getting API-level access to the Rafale's source code. They're getting the keys to the black box. So today, we're going to unlock that box together. First, we're going to dig into the tech that makes this whole deal revolutionary. Then we'll look at the actual Indian-made weapons that could soon be flying on these French jets. And finally, we'll unpack what this all means for the balance of power in Asia. Believe me, this is so much bigger than just buying airplanes. This is about taking control. Okay, so let's just take a moment to absorb the sheer scale of what we're talking about. The official name for this is the MRFA program, and the price is somewhere between $35 and $38 billion. This is easily one of the biggest defense deals on the entire planet, and it was born out of a very real, very urgent need. Now, this chart right here, this tells a really critical story. The Indian Air Force is in what they call a squadron crisis. They're supposed to have 42 squadrons. That's the bare minimum they feel they need to handle a potential two-front war with both China and Pakistan. But right now, as their old Soviet jets retire, they're plummeting down towards just 30 squadrons. This isn't some luxury upgrade. This is about plugging a huge, dangerous gap in their defenses. But New Delhi isn't just showing up with a blank check. No way. They've put a condition on the table that is an absolute deal breaker, and it changes everything. Any jets they buy must be able to use India's own locally made weapons from day one. This isn't just a purchase anymore, it's a declaration of technological independence. And that tough condition is only on the table because of a massive technological breakthrough in the talks. So how are they going to pull it off? Simple. They're getting the key to the code. Okay, I know what you're thinking. API-level access sounds like some super complex tech jargon, and it is. But in the world of fighter jets, those three letters, API, are the holy grail. It's the difference between being a customer and a partner. It's the difference between being dependent and being sovereign. Let me break it down with an analogy we can all get. Think about your smartphone. Apple doesn't just hand over the secret source code for iOS to every app developer, right? Of course not. But what they do give them are APIs. Application Programming Interfaces. These act like a secure handshake, letting an app like Instagram use your phone's camera or Google Maps use the GPS without ever seeing the core software. Now just think of the Rafale as the iPhone and India's missiles as the apps. And boom, this is the revolution right here. The old way, India wants a new weapon on its jet. They have to call France, pay a fortune, send over all the secret data, and then wait and wait for French engineers to do the work. The new way? With API access, Indian engineers, in their own labs, can sit down with a laptop, plug right into the Rafale, and integrate their own weapon themselves. The power literally shifts from a lab in Paris to a lab in New Delhi. So what are these apps that India is so determined to install? This is where it gets really cool, because we're talking about creating a true Indo-French hybrid. A machine with a French body, but an Indian soul, all thanks to that API access. First, let's look at what the Rafale usually carries. Its main weapon is the European Meteor missile. It is, without a doubt, one of the best in the world. It also costs nearly $2.5 million for a single missile, which leads to a pretty obvious question, right? In a war that's going to be full of cheap drones and older jets, can you really afford to shoot a missile that costs more than a Ferrari? The answer is a hard no. You could literally go bankrupt winning a war that way. You need other options. And that's where India's own Astra missile comes in. The Astra is their homegrown solution. Now look, it gives them about 80% of the Meteor's capability, but, and this is the crucial part, at a tiny fraction of the cost. This is just smart. It lets them fill their arsenal with affordable, effective, Indian-made missiles for most threats and save those expensive Meteors for only the most critical targets. And then there's this beast, the Rudram. This thing is what they call a door kicker. It's an anti-radiation missile, which is a fancy way of saying it hunts and kills enemy radar. This is the weapon you use on day one of a war, to blind your enemy, to punch a hole in their defenses. And with API access, if the enemy rolls out a new type of radar, Indian engineers can update the Rudram software literally overnight to hunt that new threat. Total game changer. So this all leads to the big question, the geopolitical one. Why on earth is France doing this? Why are they handing over the keys to their crown jewel? Other countries, especially the US, guard their military tech so carefully. What's France's angle? Well, it's a brilliant mix of business and strategy. First, it's just good business. Let's be real. Dassault, the company that makes the Rafale, is in a global dogfight against giants like the American F-35. To win a deal this big, they can't just sell a plane. They have to sell something nobody else will, a true partnership. They're offering a level of access their competitors simply won't match. But you know, it goes so much deeper than just one deal. This is built on decades of trust. Back in the 90s, when the US and almost everyone else hit India with sanctions over its nuclear tests, France refused. They stayed. They've consistently treated India not as just some customer, but as a strategic equal. This deal is the ultimate payoff for that long relationship. And this is France's ace in the hole. You could call it the sovereignty cell. See, unlike some American military hardware that's rumored to come with strings attached, maybe even a remote kill switch, France is making a different promise. They're offering a jet that is truly yours once you buy it. No back doors. By giving India this access, France is locking in a strategic marriage for the next 40 years, one built on mutual respect. So when you pull all these threads together, the military need, the tech breakthrough, the homegrown weapons, and the unique politics of it all, a very clear picture comes in the focus. This isn't just a purchase. This is the beginning of a new era for India, a new sovereign sky. And this is about so much more than 114 jets. It's a blueprint for building an entire aerospace industry. First, you master the software with API access. Second, you master the hardware with a huge Make in India manufacturing deal. The final step? India could become a global hub for upgrading and maintaining Rafales for other countries. It's a massive long-term play. For India's main rival, China, the message this sends is powerful and unmistakable. A future fleet of 114 Indianized Rafales, bristling with a mix of deadly European and affordable Indian missiles, creates an incredibly powerful deterrent in the Himalayas. It tells them that challenging India in the air will be very, very costly. And for the United States, well, there's a big lesson here. If you want to build real alliances with powerful, independent countries like India, you can't just treat them like clients. You have to be willing to share technology, to trust your partners. France gets it. This deal proves it. But ultimately, for India itself, this is the grand prize. This is the beginning of the end of dependency. It's the moment the country can be sure that its pilots are flying into battle with weapons it built, guided by software it wrote, defending a nation with technology that no foreign power can ever switch off. The black box is finally open. $35 billion is an almost unimaginable amount of money. There's just no question about it. But what's really on the table here is something you can't put a price on. It's control, it's self-reliance, it's sovereignty. And that leaves us with one final thought. In a world this uncertain, what is the true price of a sovereign sky?